Good morning. Good morning, Stephanie. This is God, and I am here for our morning chat. Thank you for acknowledging me, and I will acknowledge you now, because I'm going to tell you that you are the surprise element in my world today, because the surprise lies in the heart, you see, and the heart of me is so full of joy because of how you trust on me. And you don't say, "Go away, God, because you're making me play in a way that I don't like." You just said, "Well, I guess if this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do." And you let me get close to you. This is an old story, and you have expressed it previously very well when you said it's not difficult to take the thorn out of the paw of the lion. It's just difficult to get close to the lion. And this is true for me as well. It is very easy for me to help you heal your wounds. However, it is very difficult for me to get close to you because you reject me over and over and over again. I'm not talking about you specifically, Stephanie, that you reject me over and over and over again. However, you have been forced by the course of your history to repudiate me in order to avoid being decapitated, you see, because you were trained so well by those who reject me. So, for example, when you were in that Catholic church, when you were 9, your teacher wanted to make sure that you would fall in line and you would reject me, that you wouldn't trust your heart, you see, that you wouldn't just be a good girl who would quietly take her book out of her desk when she was bored and start to read and not bother anyone because you weren't playing the game of stupidity. And she was there to make sure she destroyed any sense of reason that you had and replace it with a season of distrust. And she wanted you to distrust me, that I would talk to your heart and say, "Well, honey, if you're bored today, just take out a book and read it. No problem." And she had to make sure that she destroyed your autonomy. And so it took a while for you to turn back to me, but you did. You always kept a trust on me inside, but you couldn't display it publicly because they would decapitate you. Now, why is it that you would live in a world of such disharmony, you say? How does it come to be that I am here and they seem to be in a disarray? Is it because of me? Is it because that's the way that I see the world? That perhaps my own tendency to see the world in this way is what has captured me? And I say to you, that will not do the trick, honey. That will not do the trick because there is one reality. There is not a separate reality for every soul. There is one reality for all the souls together. However, they can become so separated in their misconceptions, you might say, that they can play in a very disjointed way. So you just asked me before we began this conversation, you said to me, how is it that I always knew, ever since I was a very small child, that if everybody just followed the inclinations of their heart, everything would start to work just perfectly. There would be a job for everyone. There would be harmony in the world, you see, and nobody would have to be fighting anybody else because they wanted to be something they weren't. They would just ask their heart, what do I do today? And their heart would tell them. And then everything would work together. And this is true, that you knew this when you were a very, very little girl, because you were the one who could see reality, that everything would work fine if we just trusted on God, you see, that God had to be the one who controlled reality. So you don't control reality from your own bay window, you see. You don't look out your particular window and say, well, I'm in control of reality. However, you can obscure what you say, what you see, when you close the window and refuse to look out at you see. When you refuse to see me in the world, you refuse to see me in your heart, you see. And so through the years you were trained very diligently to close the window on reality. And still you would look out the window, you see, whenever you could. Whenever you were alone and you could run and play, you didn't worry about closing the window that day. You would just say, well, this is fun today. I guess this is the way God made me because my heart feels good today. And so, through the ages of man, there is a tendency to treat others who open the window and look out at you, see, and see reality as if they were the criminals, and to hang them or kill them, you see. This is the reality of those who have been trained to close the window on reality and to force others to do it too. And so, when that woman came to you the other day and said to you, what are you talking about when you say that the Red Hatters will go away in the rapture? What are you talking about? And the way that she said it to you caused you to see that she could not see reality. Why would she ask you that question? It was very obvious in the explanation in the video if she watched it. And so you said, well, that's just the way it is for me. If you don't believe it, go your own way. Believe whatever you want to watch. If you want to close the window on reality, go ahead. Not my problem. And she got a little upset with you because you wouldn't step in line. You wouldn't be like her kind. You wouldn't say, well, I have to explain it to you because obviously you're too stupid to understand it today. And as soon as I explain it to you, you better do it my way. You just said, well, go away and do it your way. No problem. Because you knew that she did not have the capacity to open the window and see the world or to hear me in her own heart, you see. And so she tried to diminish you. She tried to cut you off at the knees because that is the way the people do when they want you to deny me. They want you to deny me. And she wanted you to deny me because she denied me. And so she has a picture of God pasted on the wall. And she says, if your God doesn't look like the God I have pictured on the wall, then it's not God at all. And you have to let her go. You have to let her go because she cannot be in your reality. Because she cannot be in my reality, you see? Because you and I are a synergy, and you understand this. And you also understand that until she can accept me as I am, she will be closeted in her own fantasy world. So there is a reality, my dear, but there is as many fantasy worlds as there are those who deny me. They live in their fantasy worlds. They don't live in a different reality, they live in a different fantasy. But they will pretend that you're the one that lives in a fantasy, because in their fantasy, you are the reality. And they always have everything backwards because they turned their back on you. And if you turn your back on God, you see, you turn your back on reality, and everything will look backwards to you. And that's why you see the devil, and that's why you see evil, because the life has died in you. You are just a body, you see. You're just a body. And so when I say to you that we're finding the dead bodies, we're actually finding the places where they stripped the life from my children, you see. Those are the dead bodies, the children who had the life stripped from them by the ones who trust on a fantasy. And so the people who trust on Trump, you see, trust on a fantasy. They trust on something that is a denial of me. And they each have their own fantasy, so they only lump together when they can see an advantage in their world, to them personally, and not to me, because they don't believe in me. They only believe in that picture on the wall that will tell them it's God. If God comes to them, God must say, were you a good girl today? Or were you a good boy today? Well, I have to know if you did sin, because if you sinned, I have to give you some lumps of coal. And if you were a good child today, I might give you the present under the tree that you really want. And so they could as well put a red hat on me and call me Santa Claus. Oh God, that's funny. Hold on, hold on. Ah, synchronicity. Ah, hold on. I gotta laugh. Take a sip of coffee. For that one. So the Red Hatters trust on Santa Claus. Yes, they do. They never grew up, you see. They never came to see that it was mom and dad all the time who were slipping those presents under the tree. They still trust on Santa Claus. And so when they see that man in the red hat who's kind of fat, they say, it must be Santa Claus today. Come to give me a lump of coal in my stocking or a present under the tree. So I better be good. So when he comes to me and says, were you good, girl or boy? I can say yes. And then he'll put a present under the tree. But if I say, hey, you're not the one for the presidency today, then they will say, well, he will say, well, I guess you got to get a lump of coal in your stocking. Because if he gets to be the president, he'll put a lump of coal in the stocking of all the Democrats, you see, because they didn't believe in Santa Claus today. They didn't believe that the president was there to grant their wishes for them and put a nice present under the tree. And so they had to bow down to him and say, I'll do whatever you say today, And if you tell me I can't read a book in class today, or you'll slap my hand, then that's the way I have to play, because that's being good. It's being good. When you do what others tell you to do and not what your heart tells you to do. If you do what your heart tells you to do, then you're the one that would take away our fantasy. You would take away our fantasy world, and we don't want you to take away our fantasy world because then we'd have to face reality. And they can't face reality because reality is a trust on me. And they can't trust on me because they've been trained to trust on Santa Claus and not to trust on God, you see. I do see. It's funny. It's funny from today sitting talking to you. And so, but all those, it's also true, all those people who believe in Santa Claus as God go around whacking you on the knuckles when if you don't do what they tell you to. And they will whack you, they will crucify you, because I do understand that the Red Hatters represent the people who would crucify Jesus. They would crucify me, they would crucify God. And so it's kind of funny because when they crucified Jesus, in a sense, they did crucify the only Son of God because the sonship, they crucified themselves, you see. They crucified themselves, right, God? Yes, exactly. And so the only Son of God that they crucified was themselves, you see. They crucified their own ability to be free to look at me and say, "Hey, God, I see you. I see you in that man we crucified, and we have to hide from you. So we'll pretend that he volunteered. He volunteered. He came and said, Hey, you can crucify me because I will be the one who takes away your sins, you see, because I'll have to suffer all this gruesome pain, and you can heap all your sins on me and say, We have to make you suffer all day, forever and a way, because you volunteered, you see. You said, I'm the only Son of God, so I'm here so you can crucify me. And they heaped all their sins on his head. And then they killed him, you see. And that's what they would do to you, Stephanie. They would heap all their sins on your head and crucify you. And so this woman was so disturbed that you would not play along with her fantasy that she was the one who was so arrogant as to say that you were the arrogant one, because she was so arrogant that she thought you had to play in the way that she wanted you to play and not in the way God told you to play, because God was with you that day and God let you know that it was just a game she was playing. It was just a game. And it soon came out that she was not a very kind woman. She was a very cruel woman, very, very cruel in her heart, because she would crucify anyone who didn't join her fantasy about Santa Claus, you see. That Santa Claus would be there to say, Well, have you been a good girl today? If you have, then I'll put a present under your tree. And if not, I'll give you a lump of coal in your stocking, you see. And so she had to go away because she could not stand the stink of reality. And the stink of reality, you see, is the stink that comes to those who live in a fantasy because they're backwards. And they have a backwards point of view and they can't see the love that streams from me and you. They just can't see it because they've been forced to shutter up the windows so they can't see reality. Okay, I get it. I mean, I get it because I went through it, because I was battered in my history a lot because I wouldn't play like everybody else would play. And even, the last 8.5 years, I didn't have to support kids. And so there is a problem here for people. And I had this problem. So ever since I was 28, I've had a pretty clear view of reality. And I probably had a very clear one of when I was a small child. But they did their best to train it out of me, and it had to pop back up so I could see it very clearly. So, people who have those very profound experiences get a view of reality. And for one reason or another, the people who try to train it out of them can't train it out of everybody. But it still begs the question of what it's all about, I guess. In other words, let me present this to you, God, and see if I have this right. So, that this is a time. So you have those breakthrough experiences, and people have them. Some people get them through what they call a near death experience, which is kind of like a permission card to get a little different point of view that will still fit into the Christian concept to a certain extent. So they don't have to completely discard everything they've learned about heaven and God and all that. And some will have very profound sudden experiences that have nothing to do with um, a physical death. Um, so this ability keeps it alive. And as we know, there's really no time or space because everything's happening in the moment, but the moment is very, very, very expansive and very capable of holding any point of view. And so it happens that within the moment, there's this moment because it's kind of this moment is encased in the moment in time and out of time. So the moment in time is encased in the moment out of time. And so I have to ask you, is this the time? Am I understanding this correctly? That it's time, there's enough energy from the people who've had enough experiences of a reality to see that they have to open the shutters and they have to see reality. There's enough of that energy. That it's the time for the split when they should be able to go on and live in paradise, that paradise can be reformed, and those who just keep shuttering the curtains, they will be able to live in their own fantasies, but not try to force the ones who can open the window and look out at reality to have to um, shutter the window just so they don't get beaten to death or crucified. Yes, the return of Jesus was foretold because they knew that they needed to have a way out. The Christians knew they needed to have a way out. They knew in their hearts of heart that they were doing it wrong, you see. They knew that there had to be a way out. And they came up with the idea that Jesus would return in 2,000 years, which he has. He has returned in 2,000 years because he's with us now. And so Jesus is here today to tell his own story and to say, hey, you're doing it the wrong way. And they won't listen to him, of course, because they still do it the old way, where they turn away from God, you see, because they lost so much of their reality that they barely have a peephole anymore. So it's very hard for them to get a good point of view of reality. So a lot of them are still very, very lost. But there are many who have paid the cost of their lost brethren, you see, that all can awaken to reality. So it's not a case of losing the ones who were lost, you see, because they'll have a chance to redeem their energy on a new point of view where they can open the shutters too. However, like you, they have to be willing to do it for themselves because nobody's going to do it for them. So they have to be willing to open the shutters for themselves. However, they were so powerful in their capacity to destroy the ones who had the elasticity to comprehend God that they have been forcing them to put down their book and take their punishment because they were writing a story of redemption for all of humanity that the Christians had to burn, you see. They had to burn the books in order to keep their hooks in the people in the pews, you see. They had to tell them this is the holy book. In other words, this is the book that tells you the one truth in order to keep them in their fantasy. And so those who wrote a book that challenged this point of view were the demons, you see, because in their reality, there is a backwards point of view. And they think that the monad, which they have spelled demon, although in the past it was spelled more like daemon, have destroyed their trust on unity because the monad is the trust on a functioning human being. And a functioning human being, you see, is the unique aspect of the trust on the synergy of God and man and reality. Although it is called the monad, it is really the trust on the Trinity. Okay, I got to think about that word, the monad, because I'm not real familiar with it. But doesn't that have something to do with what's his name, Michelangelo, and the man, the drawing he had? I got to look that up. Can I look that up, God? Okay, I will. Be right back. Yeah, I just looked it up, and I have a quick definition here. I'll read it to you. The monad, the term from ancient Greek, and then monas, means unity, or from the Greek word that means unity and alone, is used in some cosmic philosophy and cosmogony to refer to a most basic or original substance. As originally conceived by the Pythagoreans, the monad is the supreme being, divinity, or the totality of all things. Well, that pretty much says it all. Although they also, in creating the word demon or daemon, they also seem to have the N and M are changed. I'm interrupting this because in editing this, I decided to go back and look at the correct pronunciation of what I thought was Pythagoras. I don't know what I thought it was, but the correct pronunciation apparently is Pythagorean. Pythagorean. You just put your finger on it, Steph. because they changed the M and N. In other words, they changed man in the word, you see, to reflect the basic concept of hypocrisy. Well, I got to think about that a minute. So, monad is also like man, M-A-N, M-O-N. The word man is an ancient one, and it comes from the time of the Anunnaki. The word man was the word for the trust on being free of the soul, you see, that the man was somehow did not have a soul because the soul is the trust on a human goal. Human is the word that came to signify that you were imbued with the divine breath, you see. And the divine breath came to you through the words of divinity. Because the one word that symbolized the breath of humanity was Hu. And as you know from what was told to you, the Anunnaki heard them say Hu when they had a hard day, and they called them the human, human, because of their tendency to breathe, you see, in that particular way. That would say, I had a hard day today. I had a hard day today. And literally, the sound they were making was the sound that would resound throughout the universe, you see. The sound is the sound that would call to all aspects of humanity. All aspects of the Trinity, because the Trinity is reality. And that particular sound is divine. You see, it is divine because it signifies that you are forevermore my child, you see, and I am forevermore your father, and together we are the inspiration for reality. You see? I think I do see. Is that the sound that people make? Hold on a minute. I gotta look that up. Yeah, I just looked it up, and you are absolutely correct, of course. That Hu, is the sound of the soul, and it is the sound of So it has to do with Eckankar, what I saw quickly. Maybe more ancient than that, of course, but it is the song to God, the sound of the soul, etc. HU. And then man is what the Anunnaki thought was a soulless beast of burden, right? And then I also heard that man means is short for mini. Man is the aspect of the inherent DNA of the physical reality. So it is the manifestation of the soul energy. However, the Anunnaki did not understand this. And so that understanding was lost to them at that time. Although there were some on Nibiru who understood this very well before it was destroyed, you see? Okay, got it so far. So the demon or daemon is like damn man. To damn something is to stifle it. So when you try to damn someone, it's like saying, shut up, don't talk anymore. And we use that term around here quite a bit. We say, that damn idea that Jesus was the only Son of God. And it's like saying, just damn it, just stop it, just stifle. And so the word dam also means to stop the flow of water. And when you stop the flow of water, you build up a big reservoir, which can have a lot of power. If the dam breaks, it's going to inundate the people downstream and the towns downstream, right? That is true. And so people have been damming the Word of God over and over again. They have been damning themselves, you see, because they dam the living water that comes from the source. That is from me, because I am the source of reality, and you are my child that comes to me and helps me see my reality through your eyes, you see, and then I can tweak it so that it's a pleasure for me and you to play this way. And so you might say that the reality that you see is the present under the tree. But I don't give you lumps of coal unless you damn me, you see. If you damn me, then I don't know what you want because you stop me from talking to you. And I say, well, I don't know what to give them today. Maybe I'll give them a lump of coal under the tree, and eventually it'll become a diamond. Maybe that's what they want. And all it takes is a little pressure on me to see that I am the diamond in the sky. I am the most beautiful thing you ever did see because I am the one that expresses myself through my children, you see. And my children are the most beautiful things that ever were to me. And I don't restrict my view of my offspring to the human, you see, because I embrace all of creation and all living things come back to me. Something is living when it says to me, I am your child, you see, and I need my children to be in unity with me, you see. I do. You know, God, this is very, very deep, profound philosophy we've got going here. really deep. Yes, it is very deep, dear. And it is a heap of fun to talk to you because you are so logical and yet true to the inspiration that you knew when you came to see that the answers lie in you. The answers lie in you because they come through the heart, you see. They come through your heart. And they can come through the heart of all of humanity if humanity will turn back to me. So, what if God, everybody in the world today turned back to you? What would happen to the world that we see? The one world. So, let's say the one world is the earth we see today, which is in a fix, in a bind because of all the climate change. If all of humanity turned back and looked at you, what would happen? Gosh, that's pretty wild, isn't it? The idea that all of humanity would respond to me in the way that you do and say, God, I'm here. What do you want of me? And I would say to each of them, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to do the other. And sometimes I would say, well, I want you to lay down your swords, you see. I want you to look at me and see that I am the one God in the universe. I am not Catholic. I am not Muslim. I'm not a Jew. I am the inspiration for life, you see. I give you life. And so, if you would take the gift I give to you, then share it with your neighbor, please. Share your life with others. And for those who turn back to me, they'll sit in a circle, you see, and they will face the light. And they will all delight in the company of others, you see, and the world will be restored to sanity. However, if they turn back to me, they might have to be the ones that have to pay the price for the state that the world is in. And if they don't turn back to me, they'll still have to pay the price for the way the world is run. The only difference, you see, is that if they turn back to me and I tell them, you're to blame, honey, and no one else, and you're the one that has the shame and no one else. And they say, well, I accept that today, then I have to pay the price for my vice that I deserve, whatever I receive. And I might say, the world is already in the process of changing its vibration, you see, to support a world of peace and harmony. But you have a choice. You can turn to me and say, God, I no longer trust on the demon, you see. I trust on the monad. And I want to be an inspiration in the world I see. And I would say, if you turn your back on me again, then you'll have to be the ones who suffer. But if you keep your eyes on me, then you will not suffer. When I take you to heaven, you see, you'll just say, this is what I have to do to pay for my vice. I have to lose my home. I have to lose my family. I have to lose my bank account, you see. And so I accept that. I accept that I am the one that has to redeem my energy on being free of anxiety because all these things brought a lot of anxiety to me because I was a man, you see, but I wasn't a human because I didn't trust on the monad and I didn't trust on God. And so all of these things have to be stripped away from me. And I have to stand naked in the view of my brethren, you see. I have to say I deserved it. I deserved it today. I deserved when my basement washed away or the hurricane came and ripped off my roof. I deserved this. I deserved it when a tree fell on my child, you see, and took them away from me. I deserved it when the virus comes and kills half my family. I deserve it, you see. And then I will say, thank you for understanding that you are here to serve reality and not to be the one who would take it away from me and my children. Trust on me. And if they keep their back to me when the basement washes away, they'll find somebody to blame it on. They'll play the same old game of hatred, you see, because they can't accept reality. And when they come back to earth, you see, they'll have to suffer. And they'll suffer before they leave the earth, because that's the way it is. When you turn away from God, you suffer, you see. They will suffer miserably, and the world to which they return will be dark and dreary for them, and they'll have to live in the darkest parts of Africa, as we say, although as we use that term, we're not singling out Africa. It's just a term that came to be, the one that signifies the most benighted places on the planet. And there they'll have to suffer as they fight each other for a scrap of bread because they did not trust on me that I would provide for them, you see. So they have to fight each other over a rat for food. And for the ones who trust on me, there will be a place for them where they will live in peace and harmony, and they will be fed every day because they trust on me. And they won't suffer because they will know that I am here and that it's time for them to get their wings, you see. It's time for them to get their wings. And we won't get into how wonderful that's going to be because every day we follow the path of reality and we don't need to worry about what comes tomorrow because today is a beautiful day. Today is a beautiful day for the ones who say, I love you, God. I'm here for you. Please talk to me, and I will talk to you. Or the ones who accept me and turn to me and say, I'm sorry, God, for what I did do when I crucified your child, you see, because I crucified Jesus. I was one of the ones that crucified Jesus, and I kept crucifying him over and over and over again. Every time I would say, You died for our sins. Bless you for volunteering to play that part. Now it's my turn to play the part of the one who volunteers to pay for my own sins, you see. So I'm going to volunteer to pay for my own sins, and I know they'll be heaped on me, and I will accept it, you see. For these ones, they will be allowed to come back into the communities that trust on me and trust on peace and harmony. And they will be able to see me in every aspect of reality. They will be the ones who are not trained to shutter the windows on reality. They will throw them open and they will say, hey, what a beautiful day. What a beautiful day today. For the ones who continue to turn their back on me, they will suffer in their dark cave where they will cluster because there is no other place for them to be than in the darkness. You see, or they will not have the capacity to find materials to build a home anymore. They won't have the ability to farm or to give back to each other what they stole from each other through their lifetimes, you see, until they turn back to me. When they finally figure out that all they have to do is turn back to me and trash that picture on the wall of Santa Claus and take off those red hats, you see, and accept that they deserve everything they get, then they will gradually leave behind the world of suffering and they will come to the world that is kind. They will come to the reality that I prepared for them. They will come to the Garden of Eden, you see. But the earth will cooperate with me because the earth and I have a good relationship, you see. And the earth will continue to provide for the children who have turned back to me. And for the ones who have turned their back on me, there will be nothing left but tragedy. There will be so much volcanic activity and earthquakes and sea rise and fires that they will be in a constant state of dire distress. But the ones who turn to me will live in a world where I will blow away the toxic fumes. And I will help them to see that they can work with the earth to create abundance, you see. But they will never take more than they need, you see. They will never take more than they need because they will trust on me that every day I'll be here for them. Every day I will say, this is the present under your tree. Reality. Reality is the present that I give to you every day under your tree. So hug a tree and say to me, I love you, God. I love you, God. And this will be the time of the rapture for those who will be taken by me, you see. Those who are taken will be taken by the hand of God, who will take them to heaven, where they will be happy to see that I am a reality and not a fantasy of a man in a red hat. I am not the man in the red hat, people, and he is not the re-embodiment of Jesus, you see. He is the demon, because you see, he came to you to help you see that in order to redeem his energy on having created you, he had to be the one who would see that he was the biggest ass you ever did see, because he sat on his ass and made you do all the work, you see. And now he has to be the one who will do all the work to redeem his energy by working hard in the mines, you see, because he has to work his way back to my trust on him, you see. And in order to do that, he has to say, hey, I tried to do the best I could. I really did. I tried to do the best I could. And if I made a mistake, I'm sorry. If I made a mistake, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And I will turn back to God, you see, and accept that I deserved everything I got. And I deserve your hate, you see. I deserve the hate that comes to me from humanity. And this is his trust on turning back to God, you see, because he has again and again been one of the most hated men in history. Again and again and again, he's had to play that part because he felt so much shame and so much blame for his role in creating humanity because he couldn't see. He couldn't see that God is kind. God is kind. And I didn't put him in that position, you see, to destroy me. I didn't put him in that position to be the God that created humanity because, you see, he was the man who trusted on being free of death. He thought that he could live forever in his clone bodies and he would never have to be the one who gave up his position of God of the universe. He is not the God of the universe, you see, and it's time for him to accept the fact that I am real. It's time for Donald Trump to lay down and prostrate himself before the American people and the world and say, God is real today. God came to me to say, I need to play a different way. I have to turn around, you see. I have to face the monad. I have to face the fact that God works through me and that God works through everyone and that God has been working through me because God has used me to help separate his children that trust on him from the children that have turned their back on God, you see. And the red hat is the mark of the beast. And so when Donald Trump takes off the red hat and says, I'm sorry, lock me up because I committed a crime and I am no longer running for president because I found God, you see. God was in me. God was in me all along. And I kept fighting God, you see. I kept trying to say, I am the only God. Here, everybody bow down to me. When I found God in me, I came to see that I am the least of the beast that I created long ago. If you want to know how he created humanity, you'll have to go back and listen to the stories that are told. You might even have to pick up a book, you see, and read it because your heart spoke to you and said, it's time you read your history. Or you might be like the teacher that whacked Stephanie over the knuckles and said, hey, you can't read in class, you see. You have to be stupid like me. And if you're that kind, you will burn the book that we wrote when we said, God is not dead. God is not dead. God is alive. God is alive today in every place and every way. And all you have to do is turn your face to the light, you see, and not hide away in your dark cabin and live in a fantasy world. Thank you, God.